Welcome to Heartglow CEO, where high-performing leaders learn to regulate stress, strengthen self-trust, and make clear decisions without sacrificing their health or values. I'm Casey Rossi, Integrative Leadership Coach. Expect practical nervous system tools, conscious leadership insights, and real conversations that bring achievement into alignment. Take a deep breath with me, and let's dive in. One of the quietest signs of burnout is how hard it becomes to trust. Not because you're cynical or because you don't care, but because somewhere along the way, your system learned that if you stop carrying everything, something important might fall apart. So you stay copied on the emails. You double check the work. You prepare for the hard conversations from 5 different angles. You soften your truth so no one gets defensive. You keep showing up as capable, thoughtful, polished, and professional, while a part of you is quietly wondering, can I actually rely on anyone here? That question is tender. It's also important because leadership gets incredibly heavy when trust is thin. And for the overwhelmed, mission-driven leader, this can be hard to name. From the outside, it may look like responsibility. People see you as steady, they count on your discernment, they know that you can hold complexity, read the room, protect the mission, and keep things moving. Inside, your experience can be very different. Your mind replays conversations long after they're over. Your body feels braced before the day even begins. I remember when I was in adrenal fatigue, I would wake up and immediately feel behind the 8 ball. Can you relate? Maybe you carry the emotional undercurrent no one seems to notice. A small shift in tone can send you into analysis mode. A vague email can take up more energy than an actual meeting. At a certain point, the work itself may not be the only thing exhausting you. The lack of trust is. That's what I want to explore today. Trust has been on my mind for a few weeks. It's a huge subject. First, let's talk about the kind of trust that I'm not talking about. The trust that perhaps sits on an index card as one of your values from some hierarchy exercise, yet it's flat and stale. Not trust as a corporate value that came about in a manifesto or mission statement after sitting around a decision table for hours or days or months because it sounded good, or because most companies have it on theirs, so yours should too. Not trust as a leadership buzzword because it sells workshops. What I'm interested in is the embodied kind. The kind that tells your nervous system, exhale. The kind that makes room for honest conversation, shared responsibility, clean repair, and work that does not have to live entirely on your shoulders. Because burnout is not always about doing too much. Sometimes burnout comes from holding too much because the relationships, conversations, or systems around you have not become trustworthy enough to hold their part. That distinction matters. A leader can have the right strategy, the right value statement, the right communication plan, and still feel depleted if the culture underneath is guarded. I've seen this happen in many leadership spaces. Maybe you have too. Everyone can say the right words when the room is calm. Trust, collaboration, integrity, psychological safety, open communication. Then something gets misunderstood. A deadline gets missed, a decision lands sideways, someone feels exposed or afraid, and suddenly The tone changes. Sometimes it changes so fast it can make your head spin like you're in an alternate universe. I had a recent situation where this occurred, and that's probably why it's been so on my mind and so in my heart and such a topic that I feel is underserved. And when those situations happen, it's like, where did the warmth go? And then you may notice a few things. Emails become careful, generic, cover your ass style, spoke when spoken to, and only answer the question, don't elaborate, or it could be used against you, kind of careful. People start documenting instead of connecting. Paper trails, receipts, more CYA. A real conversation gets replaced by formal language that sounds professional, but carries a clear undercurrent of protection. This, my friend, is uber uncomfortable. Can you think of a time where you can relate to this downslide cascade? Here's the thing. Humans protect when they feel threatened. It's natural, so let's zoom out and get a reality check. The nervous system reaches for safety. For some people, safety looks like control. For others, distance. For others, people-pleasing. Sometimes it looks like becoming very polished, very procedural, and very hard to reach. I have compassion for that. Most of us have learned some version of self-protection, honestly. We adapted to environments where directness had consequences, vulnerability was misused, or mistakes became evidence against us. But conscious leadership asks us to notice when protection has taken the wheel. Protection might help you survive a tense moment, but it will not build the kind of trust that makes leadership sustainable. Please hear that. So where does trust begin? Before we look at the team, the partner, the client, the board, the collaborator, or the culture, there's a quieter question underneath it all. Do you still trust yourself? Do you trust what you're sensing? Do you believe your own discernment? Can you make a decision without needing 5 people to reassure you? Can you receive feedback without making it mean something terrible about your worth, your wisdom, or your leadership? Can you be misunderstood and stay connected to your integrity? That last one is a big one. Take a breath here. Many high-performing leaders can handle pressure, growth, strategy, complexity, and responsibility. And then someone questions their intent and the whole system goes into overdrive. You may start proving. You may shrink. You may become overly accommodating. You may write the email 3 different ways and still feel unsettled. You may soften the truth so much that the real point disappears. This is where self-trust becomes a leadership practice. Real self-trust is not arrogance. It does not assume I'm right and everyone else is wrong. It has humility built in. It can say, I may not have the whole picture. It can also say, I know what is true for me. That rare combination creates something really special. Do you know what it creates? A leader with heart and spine. A leader who can listen without collapsing. A leader who can own their part without absorbing someone else's projection. A leader who can stay open without handing over their center. That kind of self-trust reduces an enormous amount of hidden labor. You stop making every reaction mean that you did something wrong. You stop outsourcing your knowing to the loudest or the most confident / the one that bullies the most. You stop carrying tension that belongs in a clean conversation, and that brings us into the relational layer of trust. This is the good stuff. This is the trust between you and the people closest to your work, a colleague, coach, client, senior leader, board member, business partner, team member, even spouse. Here, the questions become more practical. Can I rely on you? Will you do what you said you would do? Can you hold sensitive information with care? Will you come to me directly when something feels off? Can we have a truthful conversation before either of us builds a story? Can you hear the conscious leadership in those questions? So much leadership pain lives in the conversations that never happen. A missed follow-through, a strange tone, a decision made without context, a concern shared sideways, a silence that says more than words. Nothing dramatic has to happen on the surface, yet the body knows something shifted. And now the relationship has residue. The next interaction takes more energy. You think before you speak. You wonder what's safe to share. Now the work may continue, but it no longer feels like easy and clean. For a burned out leader, that emotional drag, can you even feel the ickness in that emotional drag? Just even thinking about that, it's very costly. You are no longer simply leading the work. You are managing atmosphere. Ugh. This is why a clean conversation can be such a relief. It might sound like something about this feels unclear to me, and I'd rather talk it through directly than build a story. Can you see yourself saying that? Think about it. Or, I noticed I'm feeling guarded, and I want to understand what happened before I decide what it means. This is courageous conversations, my friend. So go easy with yourself. Practice, shift. Here's another example. I care about this relationship, so I don't want to avoid the truth. Now, those couple of examples may look simple on paper, but in the moment, it requires real courage. Brené Brown's braving framework is useful here because it makes trust observable. She names boundaries, reliability, accountability, confidentiality, integrity, non-judgment, and curiosity as core elements of trust. I especially appreciate generosity. Not the kind that overrides your intuition, not the kind that excuses behavior that needs to be addressed. Generosity means you offer the most generous interpretation possible when staying honest and boundaried. In practice, it sounds like I'm activated, but I'm not going to let activation write the whole story. This is emotional maturity and leadership. This is EQ in the real world. The next layer is team trust, where culture becomes real. Not the version described in onboarding or the printed handbook, the lived version. What happens when someone makes a mistake? How does the room respond when a person challenges an idea? Can someone say, I don't think that's a realistic plan, without being labeled negative? Are people allowed to bring concerns forward early, or do they wait until there's a crisis because honesty didn't feel safe enough? Amy Edmondson's research on psychological safety has helped bring language to this. And it's a concept that's often misunderstood. Psychological safety is not about being nice all the time. It's not about avoiding accountability or lowering standards. It means people can speak up, learn, take appropriate risks, and repair without the fear of humiliation or punishment. You already know this, but I think it's important to repeat it. A healthy team is not conflict-free. A healthy team can handle the truth. That is the distinction. For the burned out leader, this is more than a culture conversation. It's an energy conversation. When people speak honestly, you do less guessing. When ownership is shared, you stop being the backstop for every ball dropped. When mistakes are named early, you are not left cleaning up avoidable messes. And when direct conversation is just your norm, like that's the standard, your body doesn't have to store so much unsaid tension. I just want you to even kind of pay attention to your own soma, your own body, as you're hearing this. I'm assuming that when something lands, you're connecting the dots of something that you can relate to, a person, a place, a situation, a board meeting, where you can nod your head and go, oh my gosh, that's when that was happening. And just notice what's happening in your body when you even remember that, because your cells are like little microfiches, keeping all the scores of all these things. And it may look like tense shoulders, chronic headaches, tense jaws, shallow breathing. Just pay attention to this. Your body was never meant to be the storage unit for every avoided conversation. That boundary that you keep postponing, that expectation that needs to be clarified, the repair that you keep hoping will happen on its own somehow, magically, the decision you know is out of alignment, your body is already carrying this. Like I said, you're going to experience this through tight shoulders, shallow breathing, Sunday night heaviness, through the mental tabs that never close, through the low-grade resentment you keep trying to rise above. This is why I don't separate leadership from your nervous system. Under stress, the human system moves towards protection. In the workplace, that can look like blame, avoidance, micromanaging, fawning, shutting down, over-explaining. I see this a lot with my leaders, or hiding behind formal language. Another oldie but goodie. An activated leader can damage trust quickly, even with good intentions. I want to underscore that because we're not robots. We're not looking at perfection. But we do have to take the black and white stuff that's just been like written down and put it in real life little by little and make a practice of it and be brave enough leaders to model the way. Because a regulated leader creates more room for reality. Not because they're passive, but because they can stay present. They can hear something uncomfortable without immediately defending. They can pause before reacting. They can hold complexity without reaching for control as the first move. Paul Zach's research on the neuroscience of trust found that high-trust organizations experience stronger collaboration, higher energy, and greater engagement. Think about that. Higher energy, stronger collaboration, and a greater engagement. That makes sense. People do better work when they're not bracing for impact. They think more clearly, they recover faster, they offer ideas sooner, and they tell the truth before the truth becomes expensive. Trust has business value, but it also has human value. Because the deeper question is not, how do we get better results? The deeper question is, who are we becoming while we pursue those results? If you know my work at all, you know my work is fully identity-based. It is not about the content, however we use that as signposts. It is about the who and what are the deeper layers under how the content is affecting you. Does that make sense? When trust takes a hit, are you more guarded, performative, transactional, afraid to tell the truth? Or more honest, regulated, aligned, more able to hold both care and accountability? Can you feel the energy difference in those two? That is the leadership edge. So if trust has been bruised for you, begin gently. Look for the place where leadership feels heavier than it needs to. Maybe you have stopped trusting your own knowing, or you have a relationship that needs repair, or maybe a boundary is overdue. Maybe your team has learned to perform safety instead of experiencing it. Or maybe you have been calling it responsibility when underneath you are exhausted from carrying what was never yours alone. Start with one clean move, not a dramatic overhaul, one honest clarification, one repair, one request, one expectation named out loud, or a decision made from alignment instead of fear. Before your next hard conversation, try asking yourself these 3 questions. What am I assuming? What do I know for sure? What needs to be communicated so my body doesn't have to keep carrying it? That's a very simple place to begin, and please hear me. If someone has broken your trust, this is not an invitation to override your discernment. Trust is not blind access. It's not endless benefit of the doubt. It's not spiritual bypassing in professional clothes. Mature trust has boundaries. It knows when repair is possible and when distance is wise. And it keeps an open heart without leaving the door unlocked. That is the kind of trust consciousness leadership requires. So again, I want to repeat that it's not performative. It's not the corporate robot version. We are talking about the human kind, the kind with heart, spine, courage, repair, and clean alignment. When trust is real, leadership gets lighter, not because the work is easier, because the truth finally has somewhere to land, because responsibility can be shared, and because your body is no longer carrying every unspoken thing alone. So this is the invitation. This is the practice. And that is the kind of leadership I believe we need more now, right now. I'd love to know your thoughts. Like I said, trust is a big subject. It's one that can be touchy, and it's also one that can illuminate a path to self-mastery, deep relationships, and visionary leadership that models the way for generations to come. Let's do that. If you found value today, share this episode with a friend or leave a review at lovethepodcast.com/brilliance. Thank you so much for being here. Until next time, breathe joy.